Alright, we're continuing with our multiplying polynomials, and we're going to pick up on number 5. And so remember what we're doing. We're distributing the first number in that first polynomial to everything in the second one behind it, and then we're going to distribute that second number. So let's go ahead and start distributing the y. So if I have y times y, that's going to give me y squared. Because remember, you're doing your product rule and you're adding your exponents. Y times 11 will give me 11y. So I distributed the y to everything in that second polynomial, and now we're going to distribute the negative 10. So negative 10 times y is negative 10y. Negative 10 times 11 gives me negative 110. Okay? Now remember, when we're dealing with a binomial times a binomial, you will most likely have like terms in the middle. So I have y squared that comes down, and I have a positive 11 and a negative 10, different signs. So I'm going to subtract, take the sign of the bigger number. The bigger number is positive, so my answer is going to be a positive 1, because 11 minus 10 is 1. And then bring down that negative 110. Now, number 6 is a little more difficult because it has different variables or multiple variables. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to distribute the x to the 3x, and I get 3x squared. I'm going to distribute the x to the negative y, and that's going to give me negative xy. And why is it negative? Because I have a positive times a negative. Then I'm going to distribute that negative 4y to the 3x, and I get negative 4 times 3 is 12 xy, because the xy's, you can't add them together. The exponents are different. So you just keep the x and the y. And then negative 4y times the negative y gives me a positive 4y squared. So I'm going to write this where you can see it. 3x squared minus xy minus 12xy plus 4y squared. Alright, so again, when you have a binomial times a binomial, most of the time your two middle terms are like. So that means my 3x squared is going to come down, and my two middle terms are both the same sign. I have a negative xy and a negative 12xy. So I have the same sign. I'm going to add and keep the sign. So 1 plus 12 is 13xy. And then bring down my positive 4y squared. So this is in simplest form because I have no more like terms. Okay? So remember, when you're multiplying, or remember you're using the product rule, so if you don't have the same base, you can't do anything extra with the exponents. You have to just stick them together. Now let's pick up on the next example. I'll leave that one up there so you can see it. And we're doing the same thing. So I want to distribute that 3 to everything in that polynomial behind it. So 3 to the 2 is going to give me 6. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times negative a is negative 3a. Now I'm going to distribute that negative 2a. So negative 2a to the 2 is negative 4a. Negative 2a to the negative a is positive 2a squared. Now again, a negative times a negative is a positive. And I had 2 times 1 is 2, and then a times a is a squared. The two middle terms are like. So that 6 is going to come down, and I have a negative 3 and a negative 4, same sign. So I'm going to add and keep the sign. 3 plus 4 is 7, so this is going to be a negative 7a. Bring down your positive 2a squared, and this is in simplest form. Okay, I'm going to scoot this up. Now notice that number 8 has a fraction. Don't worry about the fraction because it's not going to be a difficult problem. You're not doing much different. You're just looking at a fraction. So I have distributing that x to everything behind it. So x times x is x squared. X times 1/5 is positive 1/5 x. Now I'm going to distribute that negative 2/5. So negative 2/5 to the x is negative 2/5 x. Negative 2/5 times 1/5 is going to be a negative. Remember how you dealt with fractions, multiplying fractions. I'm going to come over to this side so you can see this. in the same way that we saw it when we had sign rules. So if I have negative 2/5 times 1/5, remember you can cross cancel if you can, and if not, you're multiplying the top numbers to the top numbers and the bottom numbers to the bottom numbers. So negative 2 times 1, or 2 times 1 is 2. 5 times 5 is 25. And remember, I have different signs, so my answer is negative. So that's the same thing we're doing here. I have the negative 2 times 1, and the 5 times 5 is 25. And my answer is negative because there are different signs. Now again, my two middle terms are like, so that means I'm going to bring down the x squared. Remember, if you have fractions, and I'm going to do another problem over to the side so you can see it. I'm going to have 1/5 minus 2/5. Now, why did I write 1/5 minus 2/5? Those are the numerical coefficients in front of your x's. So I'm only looking at a positive 1/5 and a negative 2/5 when I combine these like terms. So remember, you want a common denominator, and we do have a common denominator. So if you have a common denominator, you keep your denominator the same, and you add or subtract your numerator. So since I have the same denominator, all I have to do is worry about the numerators. And this is 1 minus 2, different signs. So I'm going to subtract, take the sign of the bigger number. The bigger number is negative, so my answer is going to be a negative 1/5 x, and then bring down my minus 2 over 25. Okay, so that one was a little more difficult, but that's how you deal with fractions. And when we pick up, we'll do the end of this one, and then we'll start with 3.6.